Hey guys, welcome to the Wild Bit Show. I'm Meghna,
And I'm Upamanyu.
and we've got a great show planned for you. So our headline topic is obviously our guest featuring Shany Dror and her research on man's smartest friend. It talks about dogs and how they identify labels, object labels. So it's a very interesting research about the intelligence of dogs. Apart from that, we will be talking about news topics like the toucans that were reintroduced 50 years ago and are now seed dispersers of endangered trees in Brazil. We're also going to be talking about how rescuing baby animals may amount to kidnapping or um, baby napping, or what would be the word for animal napping. I think we still have to come up with that. What else do we have on the roster groups?
Yes, there is a fungus that is threatening the North America's salamander population. We'll talk about that. This is a nice little feature from National Geographic. And then also similar to sort of the conflict and our role in wildlife related, nature related conflicts, is that there has been the groups who are responsible to prevent human elephant conflict are linked to more increased elephant deaths. So that is a very serious situation, and we'll sort of talk about that piece of news as well. Along with that, as Meghna said as well, there are shorter topics, some species discoveries here and there, and there are some other interesting topics as well. So, yeah, we'll talk about all of that.
Okay, so obviously our guest is going to be joining us in our second half as usual. And so please keep tuned in till that. And we're going to talk about our regular topics, all the news topics that we come up with. So starting from the toucan topic, uh, this is in this is an article from Mongabay, and it says toucans reintroduced 50 years ago disperse seeds of endangered trees in Brazil. Aerial toucans, locally extinct in Rio de Janeiro's Tijuca, or it could be Tijuca, National Park over the
Mm.
1960s, have successfully reintegrated into the ecosystem following a reintroduction over 50 years ago. A year long study revealed the toucans now interact with 76% of their historical plant diet, playing a vital role in forest restoration. Researchers observed the birds consuming fruits and seeds of endangered trees, particularly the Jussara palm and Picoiba branca, that few other animals can access, making them crucial seed dispersers. The toucan's intelligence and beak strength allow them to open tough seed capsules. This success, alongside reintroduction of agoutis and howler monkeys, demonstrates positive ecosystem recovery with minimal dietary overlap between species. Um, and I think our discussion question for this is obviously what makes a species a keystone for recovery. Um, Oops, I think it's a lot with the niche, right? Like when some animal is not prevalent in that area, and then there's a niche where when it's extinct from that place. So when you bring it back, it's that niche that it fills again. So it's not an extra introduction; it's a reintroduction that fills that gap, which is why it's protecting those endangered trees in Brazil.
Yeah, I think that is how reintroductions, or even I think this was talked about a lot when there were the news was ripe with um, you know the de-extinction of dire wolves and all that jazz. This was a primary talking point for the opposition, for the people who were opposing that no, these are not dire wolves, and there's no use spending that amount of money in bringing back a species whose niche is long gone, like 10,000 years ago. There are species who have recently went extinct, who have recently they have gone extinct, and their niche still exists, but they have, due to certain pressures, they have gone extinct in the wild, or maybe they have been completely extinct, wiped out. uh, Recently, maybe 100 years ago, 60 years ago, 50 years ago, those niches still exist. So I think this is a very good example of that, that this niche was still there. The trees might have been struggling because the toucans, were absent from that ecosystem, and bringing them back. And also, this has been a long term reintroduction, right? It has been 50 years. So I am assuming that scientists might have been monitoring them over that 50 years time period. So this is, I think, in my view, exactly right. That if a niche exists, if a niche still requires an animal to fill that niche, then these kinds of reintroduction makes a lot of sense.
Yep. And I think for people who do not know, even the whole Pablo Escobar's cocaine hippos, or the hippos that he got in, they also filled a niche, but it was a niche that was filled after, I think, a long, long time later. So the hippos used to apparently be there in some era, maybe hundreds of years ago. So when the hippos were reintroduced, they actually brought back a lot of semblance. Now that they're growing in numbers, it's different, but they actually fill that niche. So
Hmm.
unknowingly, these cocaine hippos were brought back to the land that they started from. And yeah, if you do not know about Pablo's cocaine hippos, you have to read up about how he smuggled cocaine via hippos. Quite
Yeah.
interesting. And I'm just going to share my screen once to just show you what toucans look like. So these are the toucans, really bright, colorful birds with really strong beaks. That is what was
Hmm.
talked about in the article. So they have like these really strong beaks that can, like just crush one of those seed capsules that are really hard. So it's great that they're able to disperse those seeds that other species cannot reach. And these are the kind of stories we love to see, like positive stories. And this is one of them where reintroduction has been successful, and it has
Hmm.
actually like shown the impact, like how it is amazing to bring back the animals that belong there.
Yeah, I think toucans always remind me of hornbills, because they, I think, fill a very similar niche in Latin America, compared to what hornbills do in African ecosystems or Indian ecosystems. Very similar structure.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, very good example
Even
of,
the beaks, yeah.
and even the beaks, like a
Yeah.
convergent evolution. I think these kinds of reintroduction, and even if it's even further than this, bringing back something, or trying to bring back something that is extinct in the wild, or you know one, two males or two females remain in captivity or whatever. I think this is a very good way to you know to experiment the reintroduction technologies that we seem to have been developing for these kinds of animals, that the niche still exists. There's clearly a need. And what a good news also, like for the Jasara plum palm, and by Cuba Branca.
Yeah, I
uh,
struggled with that one too. I just somehow pronounced it whatever it was, but
yes, so no other animal can access that. How interesting is it? Is there any photo of the Jasara
no.
palm or the Bicuba franca?
No, there's no photo. There's just one token photo. It's a really short article. So
Hmm.
I think it's just one of those update or one of those, small, tinier articles that they have. It does say that the research team often walk more than 20 kilometers a day through the forest observing the toucan's dietary habits. And, they found that the bird, recognized for its colorful feathers, signature black beak, had interactions with at least 76% of the plants historically on the menu for aerial toucans. So it does list that. It would have been really nice if they had photos of the trees, because we would have also been able to see what trees they were talking about. But we do not have that. And these toucans became locally extinct in the 1960s, and
Mm.
now it has almost settled back into its original play or original role in the ecosystem. So that is amazing how they've reintegrated. It shows how resilient animals are. So it's the same story with whales. Like, so whaling's almost brought the whales to extinction, and then with all the protection and the banning of whaling and everything that's happened over the last couple of decades, it has brought the whales back. And it's not to prevailing levels, but there's been a really good bounce. So, like, if you really give that space, if you let animals thrive, they will thrive. So
Mm.
it's actually us, like the humans, right? Like, I mean, if we don't really meddle in their business, they're doing a good job. It's all us.
Yeah, we can, if we stop the activities or even reduce the pressure to an extent, then I think those nature is resilient. Even like, the example of the Chernobyl reactor site, lots of animals, because there is no human activity there, and because of the radiation, humans are staying away from there. A lot of animals have found refuge in those abandoned sites. I just found a photograph of the Jassara palm. It looks like a typical palm tree, very similar structure,
It looks
and
bad, it's trunk looks really thin though.
really thin. So I can imagine it being very tall. These trees being very tall, and I don't know if this is a correct photograph, but this is sort of the palms that are fruits that grow on the tree. So I can imagine these, due to the high lengths,
Altitude,
the
yeah.
yeah, the height of the um, palm tree, these being really inaccessible. And thankfully, I mean, nature always fills a niche, right? Through evolution. So thankfully, the reintroduction has been really successful in this case. Could have gone, either way, but since this was already existing niche, and they just refilled that niche. I think this was tipped. The scale was tipped towards a successful reintroduction. But great news overall.
Did you try to find the Bikuiba branca? Because I was trying to search for it, and
Yeah.
Google says, "Do you mean biscuit brand?" It thinks I
Oh.
have, yeah, it thinks I have written it wrong. But then also, I don't have the what would you say, the umlauts and the other things in my keyboard.
Ah, right.
Yeah,
Right.
so it could be a difference because of that. The pronunciation could also be completely different. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I'm not looking for a biscuit brand. But oh,
Yeah.
there might actually be.
Overall, it's a very, very positive story. Um, Overall, great reintroductions, and these kinds of reintroduction is I think the kind of reintroduction that is desired. A desired kind of reintroduction. Um,
Yeah,
mm,
totally.
yeah.
So I think, I mean, this is a great positive story. I think this is how much actually we can talk about this topic, and this is actually how much I think they spoke about this topic even in the article. It
Mm.
was a really short one, but it was a great starting article. What else? What is our next topic? Oops.
Yes, so let's talk about the salamanders that are. This is complete opposite. This is again introduction, but introduction that has wreaked havoc. So this is from National Geographic. The article is titled "How a Deadly Fungus Could Decimate North America's Salamanders." Scientists are alarmed by the potential arrival of, again, this is a scientific name, so very difficult to pronounce, but Batra coc- cocytrium salamander virans. I'll just not try. BSAL for
Oh, that
short.
was good. That was a good attempt.
Um, a deadly fungal disease, um, devastating European salamanders to North America. A recent sighting of an Iberian ribbed newt in Massachusetts, likely a released pet, prompted an urgent investigation due to the risk of B cell introduction. Laboratory studies indicate North American salamanders are highly susceptible. B cell has caused declines of over 90% in some European fire salamander populations since 2013. My god, this is really bad. This fungus is related to BD, again, not sure what that means, which has already driven numerous frog species to extinction. Wow, this is getting serious by the line. Researchers fear a similar catastrophic outcome for North American salamanders if BSAL establishes itself, emphasizing the need for vigilance and rapid response. Um, Again, I think this one is the opposite, as I said, opposite of the previous more happy story. I think this is a real problem which is going to increase if the exotic pet trade and things like that is not, you know, curbed or controlled or strict rules and regulations applied to it, because people often don't realize it's one thing keeping a dog or a cat, but these exotic pets have very unique needs. And since most of the times these lizards and things like that are very small, they if they can't take care of it, they just release it out in the open. What kind of behavior is this?
Yeah, and the thing is, I don't know. I mean, I think we've said this again and again. I think the only two animals that have actually been domesticated enough to be a pet at your home is a dog and a cat, and that's through years and years and years of evolution that they are okay with being a pet. But the other animals are all exotic animals. They have different kinds of environments that they have to survive in. They're not really looking for that companionship or, like a human to survive. So it's
Mm.
kind of unfair on the animals as well, like because they're still wild inside, so they shouldn't be domesticated. And then when you cannot take care of their needs or you cannot maintain them, then you just go ahead and release them anywhere without taking into account what the side effects could be or what kind of consequences it could have. I honestly think, like, exotic pet owners, they should be fined like heavily. Like, if you're going to have a pet like an exotic pet, then have like a heavy pet tax, like a heavy exotic pet tax. And then you should have like some monitoring, either 6 monthly or yearly, to make sure that they still have their pets if they've released them or whatever. Then you should have like huge penalties of what if they have left their animal anywhere, and if they've not followed protocol of reaching out to the appropriate agency before leaving
Yes,
the animal.
I think that is crucial because it is very easy to just leave these smaller exotic pets, especially like reptiles, lizards or snakes, even. It's very easy to just let it go into the wild, and these are not, again, because they haven't been explicitly domesticated by humans. Like, if you leave a dog, it will try to come back to the house, right? It will try to come back to you. You have to leave the dog really, really far for it to be not coming back to your house. And they're very visible creatures, so anybody and the enforcement agencies would notice very quickly. But these things, they would just hide under a rock or something, come out at night or something along those lines. So it's very unfair on the environment. It's very unfair on the species, to just blatantly introduce them like that. There is strict biosecurity laws in every country, and yeah, that ecosystem should not be tampered with like this. I'll just give a quick
Yeah,
warning before sharing a quick photograph of the effect of the fungus. It's pretty graphic, the photograph, but I'll just share it now. So this is the two frogs that are found in Northern California, and they died because of another chytrid fungus. the blue dots around their bodies are eggs they produced from mating. So look at that. This is a true parasite, and this fungus just eats the thing up from inside. So this when and the article does say that it has wreaked havoc in Europe already, and it has decimated 90% of some populations in some cases. So it is a um really deadly thing, and really it can get really chaotic and really deadly, catastrophic if not treated immediately. I don't know
And the
what
thing
the
is,
yeah.
And the thing is that salamanders are also amphibians, newts are also amphibians, and they can look very similar. So it is possible that the pet owner just thought that, that if salamanders thrive in this place, a newt can also thrive. But there are different species and they might carry different things. So, which is why it is very important that you reach out to the researchers or other wildlife agencies that are working towards conservation in that area, and then find out if that is okay. Because not every release is okay. Not every animal can go ahead or and be compatible with another animal, so you have to make sure
Mm,
that that is possible before doing such kind of releases. Because if you do a search, a newt and a salamander would look kind of similar to you, so probably like to look like an untrained eye or someone who's not very into wildlife, they would just be like, oh yeah, it's probably just siblings or probably just relatives, so why can't I just leave this one also here?
yeah. The rapid response is taking place. It says in the article, if B cell does reach North America, detecting it quickly will be critical. uh, so he's the people from the designated societies and research functions, these they are monitoring this disease and trying to find out if there is any infected individual salamanders. um, Quote, it says, we have sampled 10,000 individual salamanders and haven't detected any B cell in any of them, end quote. But biologists' capacity to monitor diseases is limited. Quote, if there is a disease outbreak, somebody from the public is probably going to be the first one to see it, end quote, says Grant. I think Grant is one of the people that are responsible for monitoring all of this and taking that rapid response. So, you know, these kinds of, again, we have talked about the importance of citizen science a lot on our show, and I think this is again another example of that as well. So this was put on a social media post, and this person was able to go and respond to it, and yeah, it was kind of, fit the outcome was great in terms of, like, at least having it on their radar that this could be a serious possibility.
Yeah, and I think if a it's a great thing that that happened, and this is basically a newt versus the salamander, and newts are a subgroup of salamanders,
Hmm.
so it is very easy to be confused. But I think the problem is that because they can carry different viruses and they can behave differently and they might have different environments, it is not okay to leave newts where salamanders are, unless that is how they always coexist.
Yes, yes. I think any introduction to a new foreign land is very dangerous, especially these things which can go unnoticed and very difficult to track down, and which can carry diseases. So again, we can't cut down the exotic pet trade and exotic people with exotic pets in one night. So this again goes out to the people who own exotic pets or are planning to own exotic pets. You know, if we can convince you not to own an exotic pet, then great. But if you have to get it, please don't leave it just like that in your backyard, or just release it into the nearby forests without proper consultation with the forest department, or proper, because there must be, I believe there must be sanctuaries or zoos that might be willing to take them in. If you can't take care of, which is understandable, you can't take care of the thing anymore. but it can also be the case where due to reduced enclosures or some weaker enclosures, these animals might escape from a hole or something like that. So take some consultations, not with the authorities, but if you're adamant on getting an exotic pet, take some consultations from the pet traders. They might know what is the best environment for these things, how much care it needs, what kind of enclosure is right, and all those different things. So take care of those things if you're adamant. If you're not, if you're on the fence, just don't get it.
Yeah, and the thing is that, like let's say there are different species get affected by different viruses or bacteria or fungus. So similarly, like if you know the story behind HIV, so HIV affects humans, but it doesn't affect the chimps or the gorillas. Is it the chimps or the gorillas? Well,
Chimps.
the chimps, yeah, that are carrying the virus. So it doesn't affect them the same way that it affects us. But for us, it could mean death. It could mean, a lifetime of pain, but for them it doesn't. So the first time that the HIV was passed on to humans was because of some really desperate human that wanted to mate with a chimp. So even though chimps are very closely related to us, that doesn't mean that it's the same viruses would affect both. There are
Yeah.
some viruses that would affect us and not affect them, and vice versa. So it's the same with these newts and the salamanders. Even if they're one big family, they the cross connection between them would not be the same. So maybe the B-sal wouldn't affect the newt that is carrying it, but it would affect the salamanders if they came in contact.
Yeah, yeah. So I think for the monitoring, people responsible for the monitoring, they should keep investigating and keep monitoring these. I think already it's a great response, like 10,000 samplings. It's a great number and great response. So that monitoring needs to be done, and they are, I think, plenty knowledgeable in that space that how much monitoring needs to be done. And yeah, of course, for the owners, taking extra care, and for the citizen scientists, just look out for any of these sightings. If there is something, report to your nearest forest department. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's hope that this is plugged in really soon, and there's more positive news from here, and the salamanders are not decimated completely. Um, so yeah, we can just like cross our fingers and just wait for this news.
Yeah, we'll follow this as always. If there is an update that comes out, then we'll be sure to report on that as well. But yeah, that's all we have to say about that.
Yep. Okay, let's go to the next topic. Um, so this is how we were talking about in this beginning of the show. It says rescuing baby animals may amount to kidnapping. This is again an article from National Geographic. It says wildlife rescuers are bracing for another spring surge of kidnapped baby animals, often due to well intentioned but misguided help from the public. Experts emphasize that mother deer, rabbits, raccoons, ducks, and songbirds commonly leave their young alone for extended periods. Removing these animals from their natural environment drastically reduces their survival chances. Connie Hall of Magnolia Fawn Rescue recounts a recent case where a seemingly healthy fawn, taken from its mother's care, died after developing health issues due to lack of maternal nutrients. This highlights a significant problem. Thousands of thriving wild babies are baby napped annually, often leading to fatalities. Rescuers urge people to observe from a distance and only intervene if an animal is visibly injured or orphaned. And obviously, not obviously, but we thought about this a lot, me and Rups, and we went to and fro with what our discussion question should be. And we said that if kidnapping with the intent to rescue was applied to human babies, would we react in a similar way? So obviously, like if you see a baby just anywhere, would you just pick the baby up and try to save it? No, you would try to find its parents. You would be very careful because you wouldn't want to be like, charged with kidnapping that baby. So you wouldn't just pick up a baby and go around with it until you're sure and you're absolutely sure that its parents are not somewhere close by. It has to be the same case with animals. I think we think that we're doing something great for them, but because we do not know their behavior, we do not know how they act, we just pick the animal up thinking that we're doing something great by rescuing them. But
Mm,
if there are different species that actually leave their young alone for extended periods, then we have to take that into account before trying to save any of these animals.
yeah. And I think in the example that you gave, in such kind of a situation, you would often call the relevant authorities like the police or the the child protection services or whatever, the relevant authorities. So here the relevant authorities are these NGOs, and are these rescue centers, are these kind of people that are regularly working towards us. Citizen science is great, and I would still maintain that, but this is a different kind of intervention that we ought not to do. I know it feels very, there is a urge that we might feel seeing those deserted animals or deserted babies. Like if you see a baby fawn just deserted out in the open when you're taking a walk or something like that, and Nat Geo shares a beautiful image here. So if you see a phone like this, you might be, tempted to, save it or take it home or do something with it to improve your situation in your view. And it is very easy to anthropomorphize the whole thing, right? Like, okay, this you relate this to a human baby, and you anthropomorphize the entire situation. Well, that is not how nature works always. It could very well be the case that this baby is truly abandoned, but 9 times out of 10, it won't be. And yeah, just calling the relevant authorities is the right way to go there. If you are unsure, you know, maybe it is difficult to also, uh, just be a bystander,
Yeah.
you know.
I
So
think that the thing is that you take photos, you try to reach out to people, and only then, if someone says that yes, please rescue, I think this animal needs help, then you help the animal. Exactly like how Oops has said, you just don't, I mean, pick up the baby and run, which you do with an animal, but not with a human baby, because you do know that there are implications if the human mom found out. It's just that you know that an animal mom that finds out would not be able to charge you with the same, with the same
mm,
charges. It cannot drag you to a court, cannot hold you responsible. So you think that when you're picking that animal up, you're doing something great, which probably, like, you have the intention to do something good,
yeah.
but but the intention in this case especially can turn out to be really bad. And at the end of the day, I mean, if you're going to be the reason that that little baby has died, then that's on you, like, because you picked that animal up.
Yeah. Do you think there is also element of the government here? And by that I mean is that there are always helplines available in almost all countries for women and children, especially the children. If there is a children in distress or anything like that, you can often call those 24/7 hotlines or helplines. I think very few countries or very few regions will have a similar kind of hotline for wild animals or endangered animals and things like that. Um, well, these are not endangered animals they talk about in the article, but very well they are wild animals. So maybe there is a way there is a rapid response team or something like that, that are in these regions with extended or impacted wildlife, which you just call up and say, this is
Yeah,
the
there
situation, what do we
needs to
do?
be. I think in places where there are things that happen, there needs to be some kind of way to reach out to the people and tell them. But apart from that, there's a bigger problem when you pick these animals up. So in this article, it basically says that there's a chance that a kidnapped animal will imprint on a human. So they
Hmm.
would think that the human is their mom. because they're babies, and they would open their eyes and they would see you and you're the one caring for it, so they just imagine that
Mm,
you're the mom. And it is especially common with ducks and deer, and it is a
mm,
way for the newborn animals to learn who they are. So then what happens is, if they're raised by human, they do not think they're a duck or a deer. They just think they're a human because that is what they're imprinting on. And it is
mm,
often irreversible. So which means that once they've imprinted, they just are attached to that human. And then that animal, if the human is not willing to raise them for their entire lifetime, then those animals have nowhere to go. And then they're usually euthanized because they're not fearful of humans anymore, and they cannot go back to the wild and just stay like a duck or a deer, because for them they're a human. They relate to
mm,
the humans more. So that is actually really hard. So one of the NGO people have actually written in this article, and they've said that she remembers one kidnapped fawn in pain from bloating who had already imprinted on the humans by the time she arrived at the clinic. So by the time she had arrived, that fawn had already taken to the humans. And it was just really sad to see how heartbreaking it was, because she kept following the humans around, and there was nothing you could do. So they just had to uh, so this is the hard part then. And in this deer's case, apparently they try to put them with other deers and see if this fawn would adjust, and this one did, but a lot of times they do not adjust it. They do not
mm,
adjust, and
mm.
then it's really hard, because I don't think the humans that are actually rescuing these animals are up for a lifetime commitment of actually taking care of that animal.
Yeah, we saw that in the last story as well. Like a pet releasing a pet, that means that they are not, in some shape or form, they are not able to take care of that pet, and that's why they have done such an act. There's a beautiful film about imprinting and how that whole thing works. It's called My Life as a Turkey.
Oh
If any of
yes,
you
yes.
find the time, then have a look at that. It talks about a biologist who um becomes a mother to um 13, I think, endangered sort of wild turkeys, and he raises all of them from an egg to adults, and actually teaches them all the skills they need to be a wild turkey. And it's a beautiful thing, and you will know once you watch that film. It's, I think, a BBC Natural World special episode. um, if you watch that film, you'll know how much effort it actually goes into raising a wild animal as a human if they imprint on you. So yeah.
Yeah.
um
I mean, if they've imprinted on you, then they look towards you as their parent or their
mm,
provider. So if you're not ready for that, then I mean, and I think it's very normal with any baby, like any baby of any species, that they need the maternal,
yeah, I mean,
except
we have all
except
heard
this.
about,
Yeah.
read stories of the Jungle Book, how Mowgli was imprinted on by wolves, and he thought of himself as a wolf. So yeah, it's the same concept that applies.
Yeah, especially for animals that thrive on getting that maternal nutrients and getting that initial training from their mothers. So there are obviously species that never interact with their moms, but the species that stay with their moms, then for them it becomes really tough if you pick them up and they did not stay with their mom, because they don't get the nutrients, they don't get the training, and then they are with you. So you're stuck with them and they're stuck with you. So you have to be very, very careful about picking up these animals. It is literally kidnapping or baby napping. So don't do that
Mm,
until you're absolutely sure that they need your help. And make sure by reaching out to all these NGOs and other rescue centers, like Oops, I said, and don't just take a moment, like a haste momentary decision that, yeah, I think
mm.
this animal needs help, just pick it up. Don't do that until and unless you're absolutely sure.
Yeah, that is correct, and that's all we had to, I think, say about this topic.
Yeah. What do we have next?
Yeah, this is a very similar topic where sort of rescuing and conflict might go wrong. So this is from the Hindu, and this says groups to prevent human elephant conflict linked to more elephant deaths. A study in conservation biology reveals Assam's long running program to reduce elephant crop raiding, implemented with WWF since 2003, is linked to increased accidental elephant deaths. The initiative formed anti depredation squads, ADS, villagers working with an often distrusted forest department to collectively guard fields and deter elephants. While intended to prevent retaliatory killings via traps or poaching by fostering elephant coexistence, elephant coexistence, the research indicates that the ADS are correlated with more elephant fatalities. The program, piloted in Sonatpur district, aimed to safely in numbers, safety aim for safety in numbers for both humans and elephants, mirroring similar guarding strategies globally. The unexpected outcome raises questions about the intervention's effectiveness and potential unintended consequences. And again, this is something very similar to the other topic as well. Like, this is very well intentioned. The plan is very great, but the outcomes speak otherwise. But I do want to commend this group on the fact that there is a group that is actually interested in monitoring the results, long doing this long term study, because without this we wouldn't be able to come out with this data, and getting it published in a peer reviewed journal as well. Like, without this, it would have been very difficult to come out with this data. But as well intentioned as it is causing some serious problems.
It is, yes. And the problem here is that I think, again, with the even with the kidnapping story or the baby napping story, the intention is good. Even here the intention is good because you want to prevent human animal conflict, and here human elephant conflict, because only if you prevent that conflict can they coexist, like can both the groups coexist, because these are places where the elephants could raid the fields, and it could lead to like livelihood loss of a lot of humans. So the process and the implementation was great, but the problem is that it's putting the elephants into more danger. That is the problem. And unknowingly, the elephants are actually, there are more elephant deaths, and that is the sad part about this. But going ahead, I don't know what they can tweak in a way that the elephants are not going into more dangerous situations.
Yes, this article also says that given the proliferation of anti-depredation squads across India, in different cases of a human-animal conflict, the study raises serious concerns about the effectiveness of such interventions and raises questions about why the outcome hadn't been detected earlier. Quote, we are talking about 14 additional deaths in as many years, end quote, Mr. Sekar said. Quote, ADSs are active for months on end over many years. The only way you can find this connection is through statistics. It seems highly unlikely to me that someone in the field could have detected this effect, end quote. And this is exactly what I said. Like, this study being done is also a great step, because otherwise we wouldn't have been able to detect this. We would have just seen the immediate impacts, and I'm sure the on ground depredation squads are still seeing that impact. Okay, we have successfully mitigated this conflict that was about to happen, the elephants charging, or the humans doing some throwing some pelting, or doing some stone throwing, etc. So we have de-escalated the situation. But looking at the long-term statistics, the picture is completely different.
Yeah, and sadly, I mean, we're already displacing a lot of these elephants and their normal migratory paths. So, like on their migratory paths that they used to follow for years and decades and maybe centuries together, now there are like plantations and there are other things. So they still do go through the same paths that they used to follow. So when they're deterred from such paths, then they have to take alternate paths. And what they've said is that when these elephants have been deterred. They've been found in trenches. They've been found on railway tracks. They've been found in different dangerous situations, which has caused their death. So ideally, they would have just gone through this, whatever the migratory path would have been through this human settlement. But because they were not allowed to go through that, whatever alternate path they chose, all of them were risky, and it caused their deaths. Now, in this case, either there should be a better way of rerouting them so that they do not go to the more dangerous ways. But at the same time, there's a way that you can, have minimal human elephant conflict. But there has to be something better, because the study surprised even these scientists. They were just they thought that there would be zero mortalities reported in the study because of the amount of effort that had gone in. And in India, especially with all the forest rangers and all these departments, they really take their work seriously, especially with the forest type. The lapses are minimal. They take it quite seriously. So it's heartbreaking to know that their efforts went the opposite way.
Yeah, I'll just share a quick screen grab. This is from the paper. I don't know if it's visible very clearly, but this is the light green color is the elephant natural habitat. Now, uh, the blue paths are the elephant movement tracks, and the darker green patches are villages with ADSS, like the anti depredation squad, and this white area, Sonitpur, the Indian state boundary, etc. Now the yellows and the reds are the points of interest. So yellows are basically elephant deaths, and reds are basically human deaths. Now, if you can see, I don't know if you can clearly see, but around the villages with ADSs, there is a lot of extra elephant deaths, especially here. You can see it here. You can see it all over the place, like around the villages with ADSs. Otherwise, there is not much deaths because this is an elephant route, and there is no elephant deaths that can be seen along these routes. So I don't know, like, because we need the villagers would need some kind of solution. So this puts us in a really big dilemma as to what do we do in this situation.
I think the what they're saying, especially in the article, is that when the ADSs and the other people start chasing the elephants or start diverting the elephants are too scared to see the trenches
Mm.
or to see these other danger, a fire or anything else. Because imagine someone's behind you and they're running behind you, so you're not going to see what's ahead of you. You're going to like probably just be scared, and you do
Run
not
for
know
your
what you're
life.
going to fall at. Yeah, so you're just not as alert. So it's probably happening the same way with the elephant. So maybe the chasing technique or the diverting technique has to be more subtle, or in a very different way. Maybe there could be different ways of like fencing, or there could be different ways of diverting the elephants and a more subtle way. So then the elephants wouldn't be startled enough to miss out on the trenches or the wires or anything else, because this is happening out of fear. Because the elephants are also not ready. They don't know that the humans are scared of them, and they don't know that they're doing this because the humans want to just save their own area. So it's not fault of the humans either. But maybe there has to be a better way of implementing those techniques of driving the elephants away.
Mm. Yeah, I think that is absolutely the case. I think this article also talks about developing some controls, and some regular monitoring as well. pausing and checking and evaluating this continuously, because as the article clearly says as well, and the researcher clearly says as well, that if this is not done, then there is an increased risk of the villagers pelting or throwing stones or poaching, them being more motivated to do all those things because their crops are being harmed by these elephants. That, at least that is what is in the villagers' mind. And I think um, the control is the control and the regular monitoring of these kinds of programs is the only sort of thing that we can do at this point. And I think this raises a good indicator as to, other areas with similar programs with human animal conflict should, you know do this kind of a long term study, statistical study as well. It's very important that that be done, because otherwise we might be missing out on a lot of data um, there.
Yeah, I think it's great that there's a study because now they'll be able to improve their methods of what they
Yes.
followed, and they just didn't continuously follow whatever methods they were using blindly, thinking that it's helping the elephants. So it's great that there is an ongoing study, and they were able to find out what what their what would you say, their steps, what impact they had. Because in some cases, like the toucan story that we read, the reintroduction was successful, but in this case, the to mitigate the human elephant conflict, it was not successful. And for
Mm.
both cases, we needed like a long term study. So it's
Right.
these studies, this research is always useful because you can then tweak what you were doing, and hopefully
Correct.
we'll see like something positive on what they're going to think about in the future for the elephants and the humans, and how to navigate this really delicate situation, but in a way that the elephants do not get scared and do not put themselves in dangerous situations.
Yes, that is what we hope. I This is a great little study. I think I would love to hear about the answer to this question from the scientists. We'll try and contact the person who did the study, and see if they are willing to come on our show and talk about this whole thing. But this is a really interesting piece of research and sort of acts as a model for other areas with similar impacts as well.
True, true. So yeah, um, so we will
But
keep you updated on what happens on this front, and if we're able to actually get the researcher.
yes,
Moving on to the next topic, we're going to do one of the short topics because I think our guest is going to be arriving soon. So, Mexico's monarch butterfly population jumped 64%, offering hope for at risk species. Mexico's monarch butterfly population has surged 64% this winter, reaching its largest coverage, 2.93 hectares, since 2018, according to WWF Mexico. This increase offers hope for the at risk species, which undertakes a remarkable 3,000-mile migration from Canada and the US to western Mexico annually. Despite this positive trend, threats remain, including deforestation, climate crisis, pesticide use. The decline of milkweed, the sole food source for monarch caterpillars, due to herbicides like glyphosate and dicamba in the US, has significantly impacted butterfly numbers. Mexican Environment Minister Alicia Barcina Ibarra emphasized the trilateral conservation commitment between Mexico, the US, and Canada. And for people that didn't know, the monarch butterfly migration is beautiful. You just see like thousands and thousands and thousands of butterflies over all the trees, and it's an annual event that happens. So it is a positive story that there has been an increase in the number, but the increase in the number does not mean that all problems are solved, as it says in the article. That the caterpillars, the food that they need, milkweed, is still on a decline. So there is conservation efforts to increase that. There is a trilateral commitment, so it's great that way. I'm just going to share, I think, my screen, um, so that I can show you how monarch butterflies look like. So this is a monarch butterfly. It's a very common butterfly. You would have seen it across a lot of places. Like we see them even in India. I don't think you probably see them in Australia and New Zealand. You don't see them there, right? Oops.
Ah, no, no.
Yeah, but you see them all the way in India as well. So yeah, they're really beautiful. They're orange, and it's great that they're bouncing back.
Yeah. Monarch butterflies, you know, they are beautiful. Um, in and the migration is very beautiful. There are clips of it available all over from BBC and other news studios. Um, yeah, beautiful, beautiful migration, beautiful looking butterfly, very big butterfly. You wouldn't know of. Um, and it takes, I think this is the longest insect migration that
Yeah,
these monarch butterflies take undertake. So yeah, great story, positive story, love that.
yeah. I think I'll just share one picture of the migration so that you see how many butterflies you actually see.
Yes.
This is a story. This is one of the photos, and this is just one of the pictures of the amount of monarchs that all come and meet in Mexico every year. So this is beautiful. It's an annual event, and hopefully, hopes like you and me can go see this sometime. Like sometime, it's just really beautiful imagining that there's just all these thousands of butterflies fluttering around you.
Yeah. 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 um this is great story. This is a great story. um Now, this is another story, a shorter story from you know the Guardian. This says Possum found nestled in with plush toys at the airport gift shop in Tasmania. Tasmania is a island near Australia, under Australian control. This was found in Hobart Island's gift shop. I'll just play the quick video before I go into the article contents. But look at that. Look at that. This possum. This is a live possum in the airport, along with all the plushies, which it thinks is its mates, maybe. We talked about the possum, I think,
Last episode,
last
yeah,
episode.
the
But
same hated possum in New Zealand, yeah, the one
correct.
that's just loved in Australia though.
Thankfully, this was found in Australia. If it was New Zealand, they would have just killed it. But
And the article would have been different. It would have more
the article would
probably
have been
been
different.
like, oh my god, the possums have infiltrated our gift shops as well. Like, when will these possums stop?
Yeah. So this article, I'll just read the short summary. A brush-tailed possum surprised shoppers at Hobart Airport's Lagardère AWPL gift shop, taking refuge amongst the plush toys. Discovered Wednesday morning, the marsupial was spotted peering from the shelves fitted with kangaroos, dingoes, and Tasmanian devil toys. Staff and customers were delighted by the unexpected visitor, initially reported with disbelief. Yeah, I would have been like, how the hell did this possum get into the airport? But airport management safely escorted the calm possum from the terminal. Retail manager Liam Bloomfield announced plans for a shrine to commemorate this event, including a photo and chosen name for the animal. Brush-tailed possums are common in Tasmania and are known for adapting to diverse environments, which is what they're doing in New Zealand. Despite being nocturnal, this incident has brought amusement and memorable story to the airport. Great little story. Great little story.
Yeah, it's a nice, cute story. Do we have time for one more? Oops.
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so let's do another short story. Um, this is a story that says, "Meet the firefighting donkeys of Spain."
Oh, this is an
Spain is
interesting one.
Yeah, Spain is utilizing an unconventional yet effective method to combat increasingly devastating wildfires: donkeys.
Mm.
Dubbed the Firefighting Donkey Battalion, these rescued animals from the El Burrito Ferries Association patrols, oh, sorry, El, that's where the association got over, patrol areas like Doñana National Park, acting as herbivorous firefighters. I guess it's calling the humans not herbivorous firefighters, facing its worst wildlife year in 3 decades with nearly 1 million acres burned by August 2025. Spain is embracing this ancient solution to address overgrown vegetation, a key contributor to fire spread due to rural abandonment. The donkeys graze designated strips of land, consuming flammable material along mobile fire break lines for 7 hours daily. This slow, deliberate approach offers a radical response to a modern crisis, proving that sometimes the oldest solutions are the most valuable. And even in India and other places where you have a threat of forest fires, there's always like a forest line. So the forest line is this forest break between trees. So they
Mm.
would raise down the entire line just so that the fire doesn't spread over or spread across. So there are these breaks. So then if there is a fire, then that's where it will be contained till the authorities or the agencies can get through trying to douse the fire. And in this case, the donkeys are being used for that, to graze, because I think it's the overgrown or the the grass and other things that are growing on the land. So on the land, they're clearing everything. And But did you know, like, I mean, donkeys are really intelligent animals, and we use them as just like carriers of bricks and carriers of other things. They're extremely intelligent, but they've been just used as laborers and workers. But there's so much more than that. In this case, obviously, these are all rescue donkeys, and they're being put to this use. So it's like a win-win for both the donkeys and the humans.
Yeah. This is another great piece of story, another positive story overall, I think. This, the donkeys apparently going about their own merry way, and doing what they do best, because, yeah, uh, grass is not very energy dense, so that does mean that the grass eating animals have to eat a lot of grass. So, and also, on the at the same time, it's very difficult easy to for dry grass to catch fire and things like that. So
Yeah, I
yeah.
think, oops, there's like a video that I'm not able to play. I don't even think
Yeah,
this picture is very clear. So if you could just share the article once and just show the video and this picture.
yes, I can
Donkeys
certainly
obviously
do that
have been used. Yeah, thank you.
for
So donkeys have obviously been used for agricultural work and other work for like decades. So this is the donkey at work. It's eating through the vegetation, and right now this vegetation is lush and green. But there might be seasons where probably it dries out a little, and if fire comes through, it can probably rip through all of this, which is
Mm,
probably why the donkeys are eating it.
yeah. um great little story, again, I think very, um you know points out the fact that um you know how much of a balance there is in nature. If left to its own devices, if we're
Yeah.
not, uh, you know um
And it's
Yeah,
actually nice to see these
messing with them.
donkeys like not have anything on their backs and restricting them,
Yes.
because most of the donkeys we see are the ones that are overworked and overexploited, like way more than humans. So this is actually nice that at least I think it's like kind of paradise for them. Like if they're getting to munch for 7 hours daily, it's probably not it's not a punishment. It's actually like a reward that, oh, I get to eat all of this grass and I get to eat all of these different you know what would you call them, the vegetation. So it's amazing that they're living kind of their best lives, we can say that. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um.
So yeah, it's a great story, and I think we're going to be having our guest really soon. So let me just introduce her. Right? Oops.
Um. Yeah. I'll just quickly set the things up. But yeah, you can um yeah start with the introduction, I think.
Yeah. So I will just start with the introduction. Today, we are joined by Shany Dror, a researcher in cognitive ethology and an animal trainer focusing on how animals perceive, learn about, and communicate with their social world. She is currently a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Veterinary Medicine in Vienna, where she studies social cognition and learning in dogs. She completed her PhD at the Family Dog Project in ELTE University in Budapest, where her work explored a group of uniquely gifted word learner dogs who have a talent for learning object labels. Her recent research demonstrated that gifted word learner dogs have a remarkable ability to learn object labels by overhearing their owners' interactions, and was published in Science. Alongside her academic work, Shani has studied and trained a wide range of species, including horses, pigs, elephants, bats, and honeybees, giving her a broad comparative perspective on animal behavior. I think. Yeah, okay. Hi, Shani. Welcome to the
Hi.
show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Yeah. Um, so as usual with with every researcher that comes onto our show, our first question is obviously what has led you to this current research? Like what made you interested in researching about this topic, and what has that journey been for you?
So actually, my background, as I said, is in animal training, and I have a lot of experience in dog training. I've always been drawn to try and understand what goes on in a dog's mind. And I joined the team at ELT University at the beginning as a dog trainer, and I was tasked with the job of training dogs to learn the names of toys. What we thought was that we can train a bunch of dogs to learn the names of toys, and then we can run a bunch of different experiments with these dogs. The thing is that when we started training, the dogs were not learning. And I spent actually the first 2 years of my PhD trying to train dogs the names of toys. I think we've worked with more than 50 dogs. Some of them came to the lab every week, even twice a week for more than a year, and they still did not learn the names of toys. And at the beginning, I have to admit, I was mostly doubting myself. I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm just a shitty trainer. That's why it's not working. But then I started seeing reports from other groups, other labs around the world that tried to train dogs to learn the names of toys and were not successful. And in the meantime, at the same time, we also found a bunch of dogs. It was 6 dogs at the time that already knew the names of toys. They were located in different places in the world, and they were extraordinary in their ability to learn new names. So one of them learned in 3 months 37 new toys. In the same time, I was trying to teach other normal dogs that did not know the names of toys, and they were not able to learn the names of even 2 toys. That's when we realized, okay, we probably are dealing here with a unique phenomena where there are some dogs that are able to learn a lot of toys, but most dogs don't even learn the names of 2 toys. And that's how we started the Genius Dog Challenge. and this research into gifted word learner dogs.
Okay. And what kind of toys were these? Like, what kind of, like, if you could give us examples of the toys and the labels that they were supposed to learn?
So these are just normal dog toys. So normally when a dog owner calls us and tells us, I think my dog knows the names of toys, they would send us a list, and there are things in there like teddy bear or elephant or bone, different balls. We don't really like working with balls because some dogs go completely crazy for a ball. But yeah, it's just normal plush toys or rubber toys for some dogs are a bit crocodiles and they tend to kill their toys. So those dogs only get very strong rubber toys.
That's great. And I think one of the questions that I wanted to ask is, like, obviously you have a variety of animal training experience. Did you have to draw from that when you approach the studies or approach studying the dogs, or did it help in some way when you approach the dogs, or is trading different animals a completely different kind of skill set altogether?
That's a great question. I think so. For me, as I've switched working with a lot of different species, I've kind of developed, I would say, this system where the first thing for me is to try and understand the animal's perspective, what is called often in ethology the Umwelt, so how the animal perceives the world. And only after you understand how the animal perceives the world, and of course we can't deeply understand it, but you have some grasp of that, then you can rely on what's known as behavioristic laws of learning. So that's how they form associations. But so I would say the top layer of working with animals, it's always the same. All animals, also humans, we learn through associations, but we all interpret our world differently depending on the species specific characteristics. In the case of dogs, they're very social, so it's really important to rely on those things. And I think a lot of times, when we have negative findings with animals, so when we run a study with an animal and we find that the animal is not doing what we wanted, we're not doing what we thought it can do, we, in most cases, can't say, did the animal not understand it, or did we design the study wrong, and so that animal did not perceive what we were hoping it to perceive, and that's why we failed. And there's Frans de Waal has this great book called "Are We Smart Enough to Know How Smart Animals Are?" I think this is really something that you really have to work with an animal and have to understand the species you're working with to be able to design the studies so the animal can show you what they understand.
That's
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's great because, we always would. I imagine us thinking about an animal the same way we would think about a next human, and trying to anthropomorphize the entire experience for that animal and how we think they would experience the world. So it's a great insight into sort of the minds of these dogs. And you said that there is a difference between like a typical dog or a gifted dog, as you quoted your study. um is there Do we have any indication from your observations or studies that why this is the case, like why there are these two groups of dogs?
Unfortunately not. I've been studying this for I think now almost 7 years, and I'm not any closer to understanding why some dogs have this remarkable ability. We do see that they are a bit more playful, but not always. We do see that this ability is more common among some breeds, but again, not always. So, for example, a lot of people always tell me, oh, this is probably a border collie thing. So, border collies are dogs that were bred to herd sheep and work cooperatively with humans. So, they are very trainable, but even among border collies, we see that it is something very rare. And also in our group, we have dogs that were not bred to work with humans. We have mixed dogs, we have some toy dogs, so Pekingese, Shih Tzu, Yorkshires. So it's very hard to say why are some dogs able to do this while the majority of dogs do not seem to have the ability.
Yeah. because for me it's a very interesting question, as I guess as for you, from like a maybe a evolutionary standpoint, or like us doing something specific to some dogs when we sort of chose to domesticate them and how they got domesticated, etc. But that's very interesting. And are you sort of looking into this in your studies as well continuously? As you said, you might as very well be.
Yeah, we also have some studies trying to understand what's the differences between the typical dogs and the gifted dogs. I think one really interesting aspect here is that, this study, it comes from the attempt to understand human language. Language has a really deep influence on how we think. And it's been found that, people, when they speak different languages, they have slightly different personalities. Language also influences how we perceive the world. So, for example, how we perceive color. And for me, it would be really interesting to understand, okay, these dogs, they have labels for some objects. So do they perceive objects differently than dogs that don't have labels?
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. But is it like, has it happened like when the owners reach out to you, the ones that who thought that their uh, dogs could actually recognize these labels, but was it just the humans that thought that they could recognize and the dogs weren't recognizing? Did that mismatch happen as well during your study?
I think what happens most cases is, and I have to say it also happened to me, dogs are really, really, really good in reading human social cues. Even the cues we don't think we're giving them. And when I just started training, I was training my own dog and I had both toys near my legs. And I was training him with a bunch of different languages. And one day I said the name of the toy in the wrong language, and he ran to me and he picked up the right toy. And at the beginning, I was very happy. And then I realized, wait, I used the wrong word. He did the right action. And then I realized that he was able, when he was around like 50 centimeters in front of me, my eyes would shift to the direction of the right toy because I would expect him to go there. That was enough for him because he was so tuned to me. This small movement that I was not able to control was giving him the cue which toy he should pick up. And this happens a lot also with owners that contact me and tell me my dog knows the names of toys. Then what I normally tell people, okay, try to film it, put the toys in one room, step outside of the room, and ask your dog to get the toys when you cannot see the toys. And then what happens in most cases is that the dogs are starting to fail because they are exceptionally good, but just not in what we think they are.
Right. Wow, that is interesting. I think you talk about you're training your dog, and I think a lot of us have done the same during our lifetimes as well. We are all dog lovers here. So do you think did that impact when you were starting the study, or when you were getting into this field of researching about dogs? And because I think that is a very, for me, that would be a very prerequisite to get into studying and researching about dogs. Was that the same for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think we are working with dogs that like toys,
Mm.
but and every dog likes toys a bit differently. And you also need to know how to motivate the dogs. Some of these tests are long. We ask the dogs to get toys 20 times in a row, actually do the same thing again and again. So you need to know how to make sure that the dogs are staying motivated, how to recognize when they're getting a bit tired and stop the test and take a break. And some of these dogs, they get extremely excited by the toys. And then you need to know, okay, how do I help the dog concentrate when there's suddenly two new toys on the floor and they're literally jumping off the walls because they're so excited to get all of these new toys at once? How do I help the dog, collect themselves and focus? Because a lot of the times, dogs can do something, but they won't show you that they can do it because, like us, they are a bit tired today. They are excited. Someone rang the bell and now they're thinking about the postman, and that's it for the next 2 hours. Now they're thinking about the postman. So you really need to be able to read the animal and again adjust the test in a way that the animal can show you what they know.
Yeah. Um, I think it would be good for our audience. You I think shared a folder of some videos from your research. It would be great for the audience to see some of them. I'll just play one video, which is the basket discontinuity condition, and I'll just quickly play that video. And yeah, once that's done, if you could just once the video is done playing, if you could explain what is going on in the video, just from the researcher's perspective, that would be great. I'll just play the video now. That was so cool to see. Um, how it recognizes the leopard and then it recognizes the metro car as well. Yeah, just from the research perspective, if you could just quickly go on and explain what was going on in the video and how did you control for different variables there. um,
So I'm not sure, did you play the video from the beginning where you've seen her put the toys inside the bucket?
correct, yes.
Okay.
Sorry, yeah, there was a bit of trouble with sharing, but yeah.
Okay, so what we want to see is how the dogs are learning. And we suspect that these dogs have very strong social abilities, and they're relying a lot in their learning on their social abilities. In the normal condition, what happens is the dogs sees the toy and hears the name of the toy. And you can say, okay, maybe the dog is just forming an association between the name of the toy that they're hearing and the toy that they see in front of them. And they're not using at all the social communicative cues that the owner is giving. So when we're talking with each other, we would look at each other and we would also look at the thing that we're talking about. And this would really help us understand what the other person is talking about. And we wanted to understand, is this something that the dogs are also using? So for example, can they use the gaze of the owner to understand what the owner is talking about? Mm-hmm. And that's why we came up with this setup where the owner shows the dog a toy, but then hides the toy inside a bucket. And then when she talks, she looks at the dog and she looks at the bucket. And what the dog needs to mentally do is think, oh, she's saying now a name of a new toy. What is she talking about? She's looking into the bucket. She's probably talking about the thing that I've seen her put inside the bucket. This means that the dog has to both imagine the toy and imagine what the person is thinking about and what the person is trying to communicate. So there's a lot of mentalizing, a lot of thinking going on the dog side. Then what we wanted to do is check, did the dog learn the name of the toy? And then we did this setup with two toys. And then what you saw is that the two toys were placed in a different room. And we asked the dog to get each toy. The owner cannot see what the dog is doing while the dog is going to retrieve the toys. And you saw how happy Basket was to go get her toys.
Yeah, it's really cool to see. And you did say that there is no clear evidence that one or the other breed is particularly, showing these abilities more than the others.
No, I would say we definitely see this more in border collies, but this is still very rare among border collies, and it is not exclusively a border collie thing. So I think somewhere between 50% to 75% of the dogs we work with are border collies or genetically related breeds. But it's not like, okay, this is something that border collies can do because that's just a border collie trait. Like I would say, for example, Labradors retrieve toys because they are retrievers. It's not the same thing. And also, we see this with dogs that are not genetically related to border collies and very distinct.
Hmm, that's great. Um,
And
I think, yeah,
was this
Meghna,
the
go ahead.
same experimentation that you would ask the homeowners to do when they called you about the toys, like the video that we saw? Was that a similar experiment that they had to do?
Almost. So when an owner calls me, and if anyone is listening to us and think, "Oh, this is not special, my dog can do it," then please send me an email. I would love to hear from you. We're always looking for more dogs. What we want owners to do when they're just contacting us the first time is just show us that your dog knows the names of a bunch of toys. Once we have established that the dog has a vocabulary of toy names, then we can try and dive deeper and see how the dog actually learned these names. But the first stage is just the second part that you've seen in the video, put the toys in one room and ask your dog to retrieve them when you cannot see them.
Yeah. I think King Shuk, our producer, asked this question, but we often associated dogs, and as it has been portrayed in, through nature documentaries or the popular media, is dogs experience the world through smell. That's their sort of primary, the olfactory sense is the primary way that dogs experience the world. But your research does suggest that there are other senses that they're actively using, like the sense of sight, and tracking human eyeballs or human maybe the actions, etc. So was that a surprise for you or your research group in terms of how dogs behave and how they experience the world? We might not know the full picture.
Um, so the funny thing about, I think, how humans, or most people perceive dogs' sense of smell is
Hmm.
that they think it's always on.
Hmm.
And because my background is also in training working dogs, so training dogs, for
Right.
example, for explosives or in narcotics detection.
Hmm.
And when you train a dog to search, you actually often have to train them to use their nose. So you know that when you walk your dog in the park, they would sniff everything. But if you hide a toy, you often have to train the dog, okay, now you use your sense of smell. Now you need to turn it on. So in that sense, because I have this background experience, I wasn't surprised that they use what we call the
Mm.
multimodal representation or multimodal search pattern, where when you, for example, in one of our studies, we turned off the lights, and then we saw that they used their nose. But when the light was on, they often were searching for the toys with their eyes. So you really often have to train dogs. There are some dogs that do it naturally, but many dogs you have to train them. Okay, in this situation, because this is somewhat an artificial situation, right? If a dog is searching for food that you dropped underneath the counter, they would often search with their nose because that's something that it's kind of dog initiated and it's a dog natural behavior. But searching for a toy is not necessarily something that they would do naturally. So
Hmm.
probably because of this, we have to initiate this and find a way to, okay, now you need to use your nose, and normally once they start doing that, then it comes more naturally to them.
Okay. And I mean, there are like videos on the internet where people show how they've trained their dog to like open the fridge, get a beer for them, or there's one who says that here, come here and stand here, let's take a selfie, and the dog actually smiles in every photo. So are those like different things that the dog learns? Is it very similar to object learning, or is it a very different way of learning those things? Like, so where does that stand in dog intelligence?
That's a great question, and I think this is something a lot of people often, maybe I don't explain it well enough. We see words are different categories of words. So there is, I would say, the most basic category is associating the sound with something emotional. So, for example, the doorbell rings, the dog gets very excited. This is a very, what we call a classical association. There is a very strong emotion that causes this association, and we can have the same thing with words. So a lot of dogs get very excited when they hear the word walk. They don't need to do anything. They've just learned to associate the word walk with something that's going to happen. So I'd say this is kind of the basic level. Then we have operant conditioning. It's when we teach a dog to perform a certain action based on a word. So for example, what you said, like come take a selfie, or sit or down, or any type of word where the dog knows once I hear this word, then I perform an action. And what we're looking, and that's something that all dogs can learn, the first two categories. So this classical association of a word that induces an emotion and a word that induces a behavior, that's very common. But when it comes to toy names, what we see often, and when I was training the dogs, is that when I train a dog and I tell him, bring me the ball, and he goes into the room and he sees a ball, a rope, he would equally well bring me the ball or the rope. It's very hard for them to understand that when I say ball, it refers only to the ball, and when I say rope, it refers only to the rope. These two objects can switch locations. It's not associated with a specific location, and the word is specific to the object. So this is kind of an abstract concept that I think dogs really struggle with. If these objects were always in the same position, that's something that dogs can easily do. So when you tell your dog, get me the leash is always hanging in its location. So the dog is not necessarily bringing you the leash. They're bringing you the object that's hanging in that location. And if you think your dog can do this, I think a really cool experiment would be switch whatever is placed in that location and see what happens. Likely your dog will get confused. And when you put the leash somewhere else and you ask your dog to get the leash, I'm not sure they will be able to do it. Maybe, but it won't be as easy as when the leash is in its location.
Oh.
Yeah, that is a completely different way to think about things.
Wow.
And very interesting. Yeah. Yeah,
So
I
it's
think
more object placement than the actual object name, which is really interesting because I think not many of us, I mean, even for us, it's really new that dogs would actually go with where the object is placed and not what the object is called. Wow.
It's something that dogs seem to, we talked before about the different perspectives of animals. Dogs seem to be very oriented to a location rather than an object. So it would be easier for them to learn that something happens in a specific location than to learn that a specific object is the focus here. And this reflects how we differently perceive the world. Humans are more oriented on the specific characteristics of the object, while dogs are oriented to the location.
that's very interesting. You obviously talk about in your research also, this ability, very, and we have discussed this as well. But do you think, again, this might be a naive question, but has there been any effort to either image or map some of the brain activity of dogs, or is it even worth doing that, or is it even possible to do that?
It is possible, and one of the most amazing things about dogs is that you can train them to go into an MRI machine. An MRI is basically a huge magnet, and because our blood has iron in it, then we can see and it's basically magnetic. We can use this huge MRI magnet to see where is blood flowing in the brain in real time. So when humans, you can tell a person, you can play sounds and see where in the brain the person is processing these sounds. The problem here is when you go into an MRI machine, you are not allowed to move, not even 3 millimeters. And the amazing thing about dogs is that we can train them to go into an MRI machine, and then we can play to them the same stimuli that we would play for humans and see what are the similarities and differences in the way their brain processes these sounds or these visual cues that we're showing them. So that's one way that we can study dogs' brains. Another is with a technology called EEG, so electroencephalogy, where you just place electrodes on the skull, on the head of the dog. You just move a bit the fur and put it on the skin. It's not invasive at all. We also do this with babies. And then you measure where is the electric activity around the dog's brain. And that can also tell you a lot about which areas of what this doesn't look at the areas, but it more looks at the timing. So when a dog hears a certain stimuli, when is the timing of peak brain activity? And that also shows us how they're processing the stimuli. So this is something really cool that we can do this with dogs. There have been a few attempts to do it with other animals, but because dogs are so social and so easy to train, they definitely beat any other animal in this ability.
Mm.
And I have to say, sorry, that these experiments are completely voluntary. The dogs do it. There's no restraining. The dogs are happy to do this because they just lie down and they get food for this.
Yeah. And do you think this kind of an approach would add to anything in your specific field of research, like the word association or anything like that, or is it not worth doing that sort of stuff here?
It is definitely worth. I wish I could do it. This is really difficult research. So we did one study with the EEG. That's easier. The problem is that the dogs I work with are placed all over the world. We have, I think, 11 or 12 different countries. And training a dog to go into an MRI machine, that's a lot of work because, again, the dog cannot move for more than 3 millimeters. So they can't even pant. They need to lie very still for a few minutes. And there are a lot of noises. So it's a lot of work to train the dog. And the MRI machine itself, is getting an hour in an MRI is very expensive. So unfortunately, with the dogs that we have, because they're located all over the world, we're not able to do this, but that would definitely be my dream one day, to be able to scan their brains while they are thinking about about toys, and see if I can find the neuron that corresponds to a ball, because I'm sure there is one, or probably more than one.
Yeah, that would be, I mean, yeah, I think this conversation that just, came to my mind that, yeah, that would be really cool to see what's going on inside their heads.
Yeah, I wanted to know, like, how exactly do you enforce training, or how do you, like, is it always a reward system, or is it a different system? Like, how do you train dogs even for these object labels or for anything else? Is it always just a reward system of training them?
Yes, so it's definitely always reward. The rewards change a bit. So most dog owners tell me they started, and I have to say they're not training this intentionally. They normally tell me, I got a dog, and then one day I noticed that my dog knows the names of their toys. So they're not intentionally teaching their dogs the names of the toys. They just have toys, speak with the dog, and then notice the dog picked up the names, and then they start giving the dogs more toys. The way the dogs are reinforced is, first of all, by playing with the toy that they brought. They really enjoy that. And then sometimes, especially when we get dogs that are extremely excited, then we switch that whenever the dog brings the toy, they get a piece of food, just to lower a bit the excitement. Or if we have the opposite dogs that are not that excited, then we might exchange the toy that they brought with a toy that they really, really like. But it's all based only on the willingness of the dog to play and work. If the dog doesn't, in humans, when we run studies, we say we have to get informed consent for the humans to participate in the study. My informed consent is if I say, get your ball, and the dog doesn't jump up and run to the other room to get the ball, that the dog didn't give me informed consent, and he doesn't want to do the study now. So I think it's very, very clear for me if the dog wants to participate or not.
And I think you touched on this initially when you were discussing your research and recent interest. But does this sort of canine cognition that you've been researching, does this lend anything to our understanding of, you mentioned, human language and evolution of that? Does it lend anything towards that?
Yes, so for me, this is a really fascinating area because, as I mentioned before, the language that we use has a huge influence on the way that we think, on who we are. It kind of helps us develop into the people that we are. And it also, it's something very uniquely human. There is nothing that comes close to it in its complexity in the animal kingdom. And I think, when we come to this relationship with the dogs, I see it a bit as if we're coming to, couples therapy. We want to understand ourselves better, so we understand what motivates us in this relationship, and we want to understand our dogs better, their own perspective, to understand what motivates them in this relationship. And the similarities and the differences in the way that we perceive language, because we use language so much, it's really important to understand how the different species perceive literally the language that we are speaking to our dogs, how they understand it. And my hope is that we also, through our dogs, will be able to understand what part of our language is really specifically human and what part of it actually also exists in other species. And then on that we can build better our own relationship with them.
Because I think I read an article some time ago where elephant researchers were trying, because elephants, I think, react to their names being, or they have similar to what we term as names in humans, and they were trying to use AI and other technologies to try and communicate with elephants in a more coherent way and a more deeper way. So that is very, very interesting, that you are looking into that side of things as well, because it is yeah, it is, we often wrestle with that question of why we are here and how did we come about here and how did we develop all these different abilities. So it's very, very interesting. Another quick question from producer Kingshuk is the study that you've done, is it only on adult dogs that you've done, or has there been cases where they have been trained for this from very young age, maybe a puppy?
So most of the dogs, not all of them, the owners tell us that they started when they got the puppies very early, so around 8 weeks, which is actually the normal time that you would adopt a puppy, and you would separate the puppy from their mother is around 8 weeks. So they started training, or not intentionally training, the dog at that time. I did encounter a few dogs in the past that were very young and already knew the names of toys. So there was one puppy that was 4 months and already had a vocabulary of 20 toys. Recently, I got an email from an owner that sent me a video of a dog that's 6 months and already had the name of a bunch of toys. And I would be really happy to study these dogs. But normally, by the time that the owners hear about my work and think, okay, my dog really knows the names of toys, then the dogs are more adults.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
And
And
I
is
wanted to
is
ask.
there like a,
Okay,
oh,
no,
sorry,
go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Is there a vocabulary count that you have done at any point of time, or is there a specific dog that stands out in its the number of words that
Yeah.
that it knows?
So I didn't do a vocabulary count on our dogs because honestly, so the owners tell me my dog knows, 300 toys, and I test a bunch of these, and then I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna test 300 toys. That would take
Right.
me forever.
Yeah.
But once I test a bunch of these toys, I believe the owner that if if the dog showed me that they know 100 toys, they probably know 300. There was one vocabulary count that was done by John Pilley in 2011 with his dog Chaser. And it was a researcher testing his own dog, and he showed that she knew the names of 1,028 toys. And
Wow.
at that point, I think his wife didn't let him continue giving her toys.
Yeah, evidently. Yeah, that's great. Meghna, you wanted to ask something?
Oh, yeah. I just wanted to basically ask, because you have trained different kinds of animals, how different is the intelligence of dogs and the different animals that you've trained? Is there a way for comparison, or how would you place them, or how would you talk about them?
So the thing, it took a while until scientists started to be interested in dogs. Because let's be honest, dogs are very silly. If you have a dog and you've seen it get his bone stuck underneath the sofa and you took it out and a second later the bone got stuck there again. Or yesterday I was with my dog at a cafe and she got tangled around her leash. And she got completely tangled and she could not move. So the dogs are not very smart when it comes to spatial, orientational, object-related cognition. They are extremely good in social cognition. They are really, really good in understanding what we are trying to communicate with them. And for me, the more I worked with our species, the better I was able to work with dogs and the more I could understand them. I also have some background training pigs. And I remember the day that I tried training my first pig and there was a piece of food on the floor and I was pointing to the food and the pig kept coming to my hand instead of to the location where I was pointing. Pointing is something that comes very naturally to dogs. They're really good. You point somewhere, they understand that you are communicating information for them. I think a lot of us know this when a dog is just sitting there and gazing at you. They are asking you for information. They're expecting you to help them. They're expecting you to tell them how to solve something. And this is a huge thing that we take for granted. It does not exist in many other animals. The pigs I worked with, they would not care at all what I was trying to do. They would solve the problem by themselves. They did not need my help. And sometimes solving the problem meant just breaking the entire apparatus that I built for them. Yeah. So, but they were very resourceful, while the dogs, they would run back and forth and do these tricks and everything just to get the food, while a pig would just go break it and get the food. So I don't know which animal is smarter here.
Yeah, I think it's a different, as you I think alluded to multiple times as well. It's a different paradigm that you need for understanding these different animals, because very, very different as a species as well. And like you mentioned this, I mean, the researcher doing like 1,000 toys, like a vocabulary count on his own dog. Um, has this been has this kind of word association or any similar things been um, researched on in any other sort of non-human, non-primate animals? Um,
Yeah, so there have been some studies, they're not as popular anymore, about on apes, where there you either taught them to use sign language to ask for different different things, or there was a very famous bonobo called Kanzi that recently passed away. He could point to lexicograms, so little drawings, to say what he wanted. There are a lot of ethical concerns when it comes to testing apes, so that's not that common anymore. There's also extraordinary research by Irene Pepperberg, where she works with parrots. And the amazing thing about parrots is that they don't only understand what you're telling them, they can also talk by themselves. So there's also extraordinary work there on parrots that can learn names of objects and things like that.
Right. That's very interesting. I think parrots and ravens are also have shown incredible abilities in sort of these kinds of more, I would say, taxing on the brain kind of tasks, and incredible problem solving abilities as well. So yeah, that's great to hear. That's great to hear. Um, and does your research, or does the knowledge that we have gained through your research, does it have any applications in like dog trading, or building a better connected relationship with everyday dog owner, for example?
So I think I'm hoping this kind of research will help cause a bit of a paradigm shift. Especially in the last paper that we published in Science, we demonstrated how extremely good are the dog's social abilities. And when you talk with dog trainers, and also I think around when you look at the web, there's a lot of emphasis on what we call associative learning techniques, where you train a dog using associations. And I think this doesn't capitalize on the dog's extraordinary social abilities. So I'm hoping that we will slowly start seeing people use more social abilities, social cues, and being focused on really to try and understand more how our dogs perceive our social cues and try to work more with that and not only form with building associations.
Yeah, that's great.
And what is your future plan, like in this research or in general?
So I really want to understand how these dogs learn the names of the toys. And I want to understand what are the social cues that help them do this. Is it the gaze of the owner? Is it the sequencing of the words? So how do we speak with the dogs? Is it the presentation? What is it? Is there something about the object or how the object moves? I think these will really help us get a better understanding of what goes on in our dog's mind and also help us better communicate with our dogs.
That's a great. I think, yeah, as dogs is, I think, one of the most prevalent companions for us as a species across the world. Yeah, I think better communication and better relationship with the dogs, and also, better. I think giving a better life to dogs who have been through some kind of trauma in their past, and that sort of thing. I think through these kinds of techniques, and I think the knowledge from the research that you're doing, um, yeah, would be really really helpful. So, are you sort of extending and continuing on this path of research for the near future, or is there any other projects that you have on the slots?
So at the moment, I'm also studying how oxytocin, which is a hormone that mediates social behaviors, so how that influences dogs. And I'm also looking into how dogs socially learn from their owners' demonstrations. So what part of an owner's action do dogs copy? And yes, I'm also hoping that I can continue the research into how dogs learn object labels.
That's great. That's great.
I just had one question though. Like the two big or the two domesticated pets that we have are dogs and cats, and dogs are often always associated with intelligence and picking up things and everything. Is there ever any research on cats and how able they are and how intelligent they are and what they can follow? Because most cat owners don't really train their cats, and the cats are just there.
So most cat owners don't train their cats, but most cats do train their owners. And
Well, there are most cats to train.
and I think
That is true.
that is this ability of cats to train humans that makes them more difficult to test. In the department where I worked, there are some studies with cats. We cannot really bring cats to the lab. We've tried this a few times, but it's a rare cat that's willing to come into a lab and be tested and behave normally in a lab. We can sometimes go to a cat's home. That also doesn't always work well because many cats, once there is a new person in their house, they're like, nope, I'm not doing that. I think the more we start showing, now it's become very popular to do web-based studies. So you might ask the owner to join, and then you can. It's what we've basically been doing. We are testing the dogs in their own home. So I hope we will see more research like that with cats. The problem with cats is that, as I said before, they just don't, like with other animals, they are very smart, but it's really hard to find a way to have them show you how smart they are. because they're not as motivated. Dogs, again, they would do a thing literally 50 times to get a single piece of food because they want that food and they were, that's everything for them. And a cat will look at you and be like, yeah, piss off and go. Like, and that they're not that motivated. So it's not, it's not that they're not, some would say they're definitely smarter.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if they're able to, the kinds of ways that they train the humans, and how, yeah,
Yeah.
it is a very high possibility that cats are much more intelligent than
I
they
think
let on.
yes, they just have a different approach to life than dogs, and all approaches are acceptable. They definitely get what they want at the end of the day. So,
Yeah. Um, uh, just a quick question. I know we are approaching the time before we sort of let you carry on with your day. Um, do any of these mappings, the word association mappings that you have done, do you have any data on, you know, how long these stay on for, or do they need constant reinforcement, or, any sort of other cues constantly to for these mappings to stay on?
yeah. So when one of our studies, we found that they remember the names of the toys for 2 years. So what we
Oh,
did there, we exposed the dogs for 1 week for the names of the toys. Then we told the owners put the toys away. 2 years after we took the toys out, I did not remember the names of the toys. The owners did not remember the names of the toys. The dogs were able to remember them.
mm,
So they learn very fast and they remember for a very long time.
yeah. I think you know that's the message I want our listeners to take as well. I think this paradigm shift that you've been talking about, how we think about, dogs, and how their relationship with their surroundings. I think that was it for our questions, to you. It was great having you. Do you have any parting message to all the dog owners that might be listening to this episode?
Yeah, so I think you see a lot also in the recent study that I published. We were comparing dogs to kids,
Mm,
and a lot of people got very angry about this because they thought we were saying dogs have the same cognitive abilities as kids. But I think it's very important to remember that when you see an animal behaving in a way that's similar to a human, it is valuable to know that there is something similar there, but we also have to remember that the cognitive mechanism, what goes on in an animal's brain, is likely very different. So in our study, we said they can do this like 1.5-year-old kids. They
mm,
show the similar ability. The way they got to present this behavior is probably different. So I think that's one thing that we really need to remember when we're looking at animals. And the other parting message I want to share is like, if you're listening to us and you think your dog knows the names of toys, or your neighbor's dog, or your aunt's dog, please contact me. I would love to hear from you.
right. That's great. Yeah. We'll share all the details of the Genius Dog Challenge in the show's description and notes. So yeah, do check them out. It's a great initiative, and better way to build a solid relationship with our closest companions for centuries. But anyway, that brings us to the end of this segment. Thank you so much for joining us, Shani. It was just an absolute pleasure having you on the show and sharing your research with us. And yeah, you all the best for
Yeah.
your future research.
And I think, I mean, a lot of things, I mean, every time we have a researcher on our show, I think it opens our brains to so much more, like what we know and what, you tell us. Like, so there were so many things that we learned today from you about dogs, about other animals. So thank you so much for being so patient and going through all our questions. And our producer would be shortly with you. But thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
Have a good one. Bye.
Bye bye.
All right, that was very interesting. Um,
Extremely, extremely
yeah,
interesting. I hope that all of you listeners and your viewers have actually stayed till here and listened to it, because I think Shani was amazing with her research and everything, her answers and everything. They were so insightful. And obviously, we're at the end of our show, so we're going to do one quick message from me, which is obviously what Shani was talking about. I think you should go home. If you have a dog, then please experiment. And if your experiment is successful, if your dog actually knows the name of toys and it surprises you, then you should get in touch with Shani.
Yes, that is the message. And as always, definitely, um, subscribe to our channel and follow us on all the different social media platforms. We try to bring, as much of interesting research because there's so little we know as a person, and it is not possible for us to, have this width of knowledge for one human. So that's why this is our initiative to bring in researchers from varied fields, um, loosely connected to nature, conservation, and climate, those sorts of topics. But we try to bring a wide range of people doing different kinds of research. And today was the dog day for us. So subscribe to us for more such interesting content. And if you're listening to a recorded version of this podcast, you'll find all the details in the show notes or in the description. But do consider leaving a rating for us. That just helps with our reach and how much this message we can get out to a wide range of people. And share this episode with someone who loves dogs or someone who hates dogs, maybe, so they can get that different perspective. That's our whole goal. Even if they don't change their views, they just have a different perspective with them. So, other than that, that's it for our episode today. And we will see you next Sunday. Same time, same channel. Have a good one, guys.
Bye bye.